My name is Chris Barth. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect at Litiquest. Raise Brown Riley Law Firm went live June of 2020, and Nick here is their head of marketing. He really didn't have any Salesforce experience before we went live with them, besides the admin trainings I gave him, and he just really dove in head first into Salesforce and is now pretty much a process and flow master. So, yeah. I'll hand it off to him. He's going to talk about his tips, tricks, learnings from the last year and a half, and I'll be kind of hopping in during the presentation to add a little more information.
Hey, so I guess a little bit about me. I started with our law firm in 2019. So like Chris said, we went live in June. At the time, I was just a marketing specialist. All I came on to do was write blogs, study Google Ads, and go through that kind of stuff. And midway through, I want to say it was like December when we were starting to work on a lot of we were having meetings, and I was constantly in them, and I didn't know why I was in them, because I was like, I'm not technically sound by any means. And they brought me in, and you know, they kind of took more of a chance on making sure that I was in the meetings, because they thought that I had more potential than I actually even initially thought myself, and Litiquest kind of helped expose some of that. You know, and so midway through sitting there and hearing Chris talk, and you know, listening to Elise talk about some of the things that she was able to build out, and she said that, you know, she was able to build out an entire custom component without having any Salesforce experience. So I was like, why can't I do that? You know, my whole mantra for life is like, you can literally do anything that you put your mind to. And so I think it was 3 or 4 months after we went live with Litiquest, where we kind of realized that we were in a stagnant free fall where we hadn't changed anything since we went live. And Litiquest is great. Like, we absolutely love it. But Litiquest is every single thing of what you make it. So one thing that I just kind of want to take a quick head count. How many of you are already on live with Litiquest? Okay, so the majority of you. When did you guys, if you went live within the last year, raise your hand. Okay, so you guys are still relatively new, which is cool, because we went live like late last year. So we've been live for about a year, but our Litiquest has completely changed. We took the initiative, we dove in, and we completely changed everything that it is, which is a lot of fun. And you guys will get to kind of see some of like what I've built for our firm, and what you guys might be able to take for your firm and apply to help save time, things like that. So let's get into it. 3 reasons to automate. Save time, to solve problems, and to offer a better service to your client. Those are our 3 things that we focus on heavily at Raise Brown Riley. We always want to make sure that, you know, they were talking about the Daniel Stark way. We want to have our Raise Brown Riley way. And every single time that we have a client that comes in and goes through, we are always talking to them about possibly getting Google reviews, things like that. And you know, we have one of the highest ratings in Dallas, which is one of the biggest things that we'll sit and tout over and over again, because we have the most reviews and the highest rating, which is huge to have in that area, especially with how competitive it is. So 3 best practices for effective automations: you know, displaying the data, collecting the data, and utilizing the data properly. And then I'll dive deeper into these things as we go. The 3 things to remember when creating: using the proper tools, making it worth the development time, and keeping everything organized and collected and documented. So, 3 reasons to automate. Why would you want to pay somebody $20 an hour to do a task that is redundant or can be added to a systematic fashion? So you can make those things happen by one small movement or a few different checks. It populates things to the proper area of what you need it to do. And then that way you also focus on your data integrity. You know, if somebody checks off 3 things, those 3 things, if they need to go to a separate object, you need to set that stuff up so it does it automatically for you. Common problems require automated solutions. So if you guys are a big fan of Barack Obama, you know, there's the whole meme where he always said, modern problems require modern solutions. This is my mantra. Plus it's a 90% rule. You know, if it's gonna, you know, spend, 90% of the day, or if it's gonna fix someone else's 90% of their day, or 90% of the firm's day, if it's gonna help them in that fashion, do it. It's worth it, because those problems can definitely not. A lot of the issues that we ever had with Litiquest were the easiest things to get rid of just right off the bat. That was the whole thing, is just making sure the issues had ways for us to fix them. And we needed to find the ways to fix them, and that was what we did. So,
and just to hop in on that, also, configure for the 90%. If something is going to happen maybe 3 times a year, maybe you don't want to be spending time working on something like that. You want to be working on things that are going to be happening every day or every week, right?
Yep, absolutely. And the last thing that we kind of talked about is offering a better service. Can you build something to retain your clients, boost your reviews, and better your firm's capabilities in client-facing endeavors? I can't say that word, but absolutely you can. Yeah, no, for sure. And that's something that we've done. We've done a very good job at making sure that we have client contact constantly. I was just sitting in another breakout where they were kind of talking about having a client contact indicator. That was actually one thing that Chris helped us build out, and I've modified it a little bit since then. But still, to the fact is the client contact indicator is something that you can do to offer a significantly better version of your company to somebody else, to every single person that comes in through your doors and every single person that signs your retainer. And then that also ultimately boosts your reviews. That's going to keep your clients on board. That's going to make sure that all of your client-facing endeavors are as tight-knit as possible. So, my 3 best practices and my biggest advice, my biggest pieces of advice, displaying data properly is actually more important than collecting it. If you're putting data in 95 different places and you're asking them to all get filled out, that's not going to help you, because you are not going to have compliance, you are not going to have data integrity. You need to make sure that every single ounce of that is all in the right place.
And another thing with that is I would try to avoid free text, long text areas as much as possible, because they're not reportable, right? So if you can make something into a pick list rather than a 255 character string, make it into a pick list.
Exactly. Right? At first, I remember getting into an argument with Chris when we first went live. We talked about doing marketing source, and I kept saying, no, I want it as a free field text box. He goes, no, you don't. Trust me. And I was like, no, I do. And he goes, I promise you don't know, but you will. And that was down the road. Now I fly through our attribution and I look at all of it and I'm like, he was right. Collect all the data that you need to in order to operate your firm and assist on making decisions. Find the pieces of data that you need that are going to give you the right results, that are going to give you the data that you can look at a glance and have actionable items to take away from that data. Because if you're collecting the data and you're not actually collecting the right data, that's going to be an issue for you. That's going to be down the line, you're going to have all of these great dashboards and you're going to look at them and be like, what do I do? We've had instances where we've started navigating and focusing on certain fields over other fields, and we realized that some of the fields were not necessary to our practice. And then we ended up rebuilding a little bit, making it make sense a lot more, making sure that our users are populating that field a lot more often. And by doing that, we have I'd honestly probably have to say we have the most robust data reporting out of a lot of different firms that are already on Litify. And I haven't peeked under the hood of everybody else's, but I can assure you that there's some pretty cool stuff in there. And then automating with a purpose. Creating automations that give you the data that matters. And that's kind of what I was just touching on. Give yourself the data that's going to help you better your firm. Give yourself the data that's going to help you actually operate to do the 2x revenue every year. That's going to be the information that you want to have. If you're trying to grow your firm, how are you trying to grow your firm? What are the different things that are going to help you see what your firm is focusing on? So for instance, we pay attention anytime somebody is sent to an orthopedic surgeon. Anytime somebody is sent, or not even just a surgeon, just an orthopedic doctor. If they had MRIs that are done, if they had surgeries that are done, we look at that and we take that and we look at every single ounce of every single percentage across our entire firm's our caseload. So if you take that percentage and you look at it and you're like, okay, so we have this amount of people that have gone to see gone and gotten an MRI. We have this amount of people that have gone to an orthopedic doctor. We have this amount of people that have gone to get injections. This amount of people that have gone to get surgeries. That's going to help us down the line where we can look at what our quality of our caseload is, and we can get excited about that. Our attorneys can look at that and get excited about it because we have great cases. We want to see that data. the three things, to know before you begin or when you start developing automations. There's actually 5. I meant to update it and I forgot. I think I forgot to hit save. So the first one is just regular workflows. Workflows are pretty simplistic. They don't allow you to do a whole lot of extra cross-object, referencing, which we personally don't have a whole ton of workflows because it's not really the most supported thing in the world by Salesforce by any means. And then there's also Process Builder. Process Builder allows you to do a little bit more cross-object referencing, but the only thing that there is a caveat with it is Salesforce is no longer supporting it. So make sure that if you do build things into Process Builder, that that it's no longer getting the new updates about stuff. Like this is the last API that they'll have of it. And then there's flows, which is my personal favorite, Chris's least favorite. I'm totally going to throw you under the bus every time now that I figured out that I learned.
Hey, I've grown to like it.
I learned flows before Chris. That's all I'm going to say. He's a custom coder. I like to play with little squares, I guess. But yeah. So, and then some things you really don't need to actually, you guys finish your other
I can talk. So obviously an important thing in everyone's system is data integrity. So there's 2 ways to make sure that happens. One is validation rules. So basically, if a record meets certain qualifications, you can stop a record from being created or updated, right? So let's say I've got a particular request that I send out only for workers' comp cases. I'm just coming up with an example on the top of my head. I can, if I select a request type that shouldn't be requested for workers' comp, then I can create an error that shows up and doesn't let me create the request. Right, so the second way is duplicate rules. So duplicate rules check on a particular object to make sure that you aren't recreating the same record again. Right, so I know if you guys are coming from Needles, there's a lot of duplication, there's a lot of duplicate parties, right? So here's an example that you can do when you get to Litify. I know federal ID is a common field, and no 2 parties should have the same federal ID. So you can make a duplicate rule that is based on that. If the federal ID is the same, it'll actually stop you from creating a new record, and it'll link you to the one that already exists. So if you need to make updates to it, you can quickly click in and it takes you to that record. Right.
We've done that with our parties, and it's actually helped us with some conflict check, which that was actually one of the first things that I dove into before Process Builder, was because we had issues with our intake duplicate checks.
Yes.
But yeah. Anyways, so another thing that Chris and I will always kind of rep is some things really don't need to be automated. Make sure that it's worth the development time. So if somebody wants something that's really specific, has a million different exceptions to each and every rule, and it can't really be systemized, and they maybe only do it like once or twice a day for like a span of like 5 minutes. It's not worth the development time. Don't worry about focusing on all of the exceptions to each of those rules. Just let them know that's not something that's going to be done. It's not necessary. It's going to waste more time in the development, and then it's going to spend more time focusing on having them go through all of the data that they need to see. So, and again, back to the 90% rule. That's a huge thing. And then organization in all of your automations is a priority for many reasons. And there's a lot of shuttons, but documentation and coordination with your organization is your best friend. Every single time that I update any of my flows, any of my processes, anything like that, there is a notation of what was done, why it was done, and the thought process behind it, because I need to know those things when I look back. I'm like, why did I build it like that? And it's like, oh, that's right, because if they do this, then this happens, and everything crumbles. Like I can't have that happen. So those notations help me and prevent me from making those changes.
And put these notations within your system, right? Every single thing that you create has a description or notes field, right? Don't have like a separate Word document where you type all this stuff in. Put it actually in the system. Right?
Yeah. If you're going to be an admin, don't walk out with the middle finger up when you leave and have an entire Word document that says "Good luck," But yeah, go to the next one. But yeah, and then 3 miscellaneous items to take away. A good plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow. I can't tell you how some of my favorite flows that I have created now started as Process Builder, and I absolutely loved them when I first started, to the point where now I'm looking back at my Process Builder and I'm like, I hate that so much that I started doing that. But that was how I learned. It's the whole trial by error and trying to make sure that, everything is going to be edited. Everything. You're never going to have one perfect rendition where it's absolutely pristine and it's on version 1 and you uploaded it and you never touch it again. That is never going to happen. I can promise you. I have thought about that many times. Like, maybe this is it. Maybe that's the only time that I have to do this. Nope. It never happens. Lean on the community for help. It's out there. I lean on Chris a lot. I send him text messages. I'm pretty sure he has my phone number blocked other than at Litiquest. I send Slack messages to Shmuel. He usually gets back to me like after a while because I don't actually work with him. But, I can always reach out to the Slack community, the Litify Slack community. Everybody's really, really great at responding. Sending an email to somebody where I know, maybe they've actually gone through some of this stuff before. I've talked to other different companies that worked with Litify and listened to some of the things that they were having and how they actually changed it. And I've adopted it to some of the things that we've done, So actually reaching out to that community is going to help you down the road.
And also the Salesforce community too.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything that you want to do in Salesforce has probably been done just with different objects, different records, right? So you can apply what other people have done for maybe, tech support and apply it to what you want to do in your firm, right?
Absolutely. And then trial and error is only bad if you never find the solution and give up too soon. If you guys have ever seen that cartoon where there's the two guys digging in rocks and the one guy's overly excited to get there, and then the one guy's turning around and walking back right as he was just about to get to the diamonds, it's very much so that. If you're running into errors or issues where you keep going through the debugging process and you keep testing it in your sandbox and it just doesn't work, there's a way. I promise there's a way. You just have to think outside of the box. You have to find a way. That's just what it is. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a taste of an automation that we created. This was actually the thing that I was talking about was first built out into a process builder, and now I've moved it over to a flow. It looks super complex, but I'm going to simplify it for you guys. It's called Radar. So it stands for roles and duplication of redundant records. And the trigger is basically anytime a role is added or to a matter or an intake record, and the logic is based off of the role type or role category, if you guys still have it as set to like how Litify has the labels on it. And then the type of party that was added or the name of the party that was added. And the result basically, depending upon the role category and subcategory and party affiliated with the role, related lists will be populated appropriately. So how many times have your users said, okay, I need to now go in and enter a role, and then from the role I have to go in and create an insurance record, or I have to create an insurance record and then go in and create the role inside of the insurance record. We have it where they add the role and it automatically populates everything over to the insurance record. And our intake is told that they need to get all of the different policy information, claim information, things like that. And that's actually stored in a very specific place. So then whenever they go to create the role, it grabs that information from there and puts it into the insurance record. So if we ever have to add, or say if there's ever a reason where there isn't a role already populated for the insurance, it's the quickest thing ever. They just add it as a role and it's done, and it's an afterthought at that point. They actually, most of them don't actually even populate a whole ton of related records anymore. A lot of it's done through roles because everything is referenced to the role object. So, and then the reason to for the automation is to really just save time. And then constantly saving time and making sure that half their cases at one point had insurance references on the matter, but they weren't in the insurance object, and we wanted to have that ability to have organization, and that was kind of the whole reason why we dove into it. Now every single one of our matters are in compliance with our data integrity because they all need to have third-party liability, first-party UM/UIM, first-party PIP, and health insurance. And if they're over 65, there's an automated population of Medicare, like that kind of stuff. So, we do a lot of automating at our firm, and that's one of the best things about it is, we try to find a way to make it easy for our people to work rather than making it hard on them. Yeah, it's just, it's a long story. But anyway, so go to the next one. So, taste of automation, so optimizing for the right things. This is one flow that does the same thing as this flow. They basically both clone the intake record, and that's the majority of what it is. So it clones it for a companion. So if you're signing a case and like, oh, so and so and so and so and so and so are in my car, okay, cool. Let's get their information. Let's get them signed up too. They both have their pros and cons. This one is very planned and avoids literally any hole in data copying or overly redundant information in the companion that may not necessarily be for that proper companion. It's very thorough in the end result. After the interaction screens, grabs every single related record that's supposed to be populated, by doing it within the actual flow itself. And then the cons is it's got a lot of unnecessary user input. So all of these blue pieces you see are screens. At that point, if you're going through that many screens, you should probably just create the whole new intake. It's a process, and it's not as quick as what we want it to be anyways. It's very messy and cluttered, and it's like extremely difficult to maintain and upgrade. If you actually notice, how many of you have played with flows yet? Okay, so you'll kind of chuckle about this. The way that it was set up originally with whoever created it, wasn't me, I promise. It literally goes to the get record, and then it goes back up, and then goes through. Like, it literally looks like the start button gets put through twice. I was like, I don't know why that is, but you literally move the start button over, and it's weird. But anyways, and then there's a bunch of crossing lines, so it's really hard to actually follow. And then it just requires too much input. And then the pros of this literally does the exact same thing. The exact same thing is that it just requires a lot less input, but it grabs the right information that we need. And the pros to it is it's super easy to maintain and update down the road with new information. As you can see, everything flows to the right and down, just like what you're actually going to see in like a page of a book that you're reading. Everything flows to the right and down. So right to left, up to down. And then it grabs every piece of data that's needed in order to clone the companion, because we systemize how our entire intake operation works. And then it's systemized and user-friendly. Our intake team uses this literally every single day. I've seen it, I think, used 4 times already today. And then it doesn't allow for many exceptions to the rules, but at the same time, we don't have a whole ton of exceptions to our rules. We try to make sure that our workflow processes are very point A, point B, point C, yeah. And then you can go to the next one. So
I'll just say something really quick. So when you create a flow, really think about what you're trying to do before you just start going in and throwing in different components, right? Because you'll get down many different rabbit holes that you probably shouldn't get down. Think about what your end result is and what's the fastest way that you can get to that end result. And then, therefore, your flow will be a lot cleaner like that.
Every vision, yeah.
Where are you doing these?
In the flow builder.
Yeah.
Which is part
so
of
just go into on the top right when you log in. There's a gear icon, and then click on that. Click Setup, and then just search flows in the top, and then you'll see it. Chances are you probably got a bunch of flows already in your system that we created for you, but you can just go ahead and create a new flow, right?
Yep.
And one thing that we haven't actually said yet is think in terms of you don't want 5 process builders for the same object, right? It's just going to get super confusing. Keep it all in one place and have the filter criteria going all the way down. It's fine if you have 20 filter criteria, right? With flows too, you don't want. You can have after save, before save, right? For each object, let's say. You don't want any more than that.
Exactly. And then that was actually what I was going to touch on.
Okay.
This is our
Sorry
matters processes.
Yeah.
These are all of the different things that we have just in one process that operates on our matters. As you can see, it's extremely extensive. There's a few different flow creations from here. But yeah, and some things that I just kind of wanted to touch on, and like kind of show you guys some of the inspiration of pieces that we do ourselves, that we've come up with. We have an intake conversion white glove welcome, is what we call it. So it's very much so like, hey, welcome to the Reyes Brown Riley way. That's just kind of how it is. It populates all of the related lists onto the new matter. It sets the dynamic matter plan based on the case type. It notifies the matter team of their new matter, sends a welcome email and review request email and text messages to the newly assigned client welcoming them to our firm. And then this one is an SMS high urgency and dynamic rerouting notification. So I built this one actually right when I was about to go on vacation. And I was thinking, because there's a million times where Spencer's like, hey, I need to get, is there a way where, and Spencer is one of our attorneys at our firm, he's like, I have this paralegal who's out today. Can you reroute their text messages over to the person that is also working on their firm? So I was like, yeah, we'll do that, Spencer. I had no idea how to do it at the time. But 95% of the things that get brought up are from some ideas that they might have had, and we just created a rendition of it. So what it does is it sends incoming SMS notifications to the proper individuals who most recently texted the client. So if you guys have if any of you are on SMS Magic, there's an issue in some of when they built it out for us, they built out a custom process builder for us. And what it did is it referenced the conversation object, which is not the way that we roll. Because it creates conversations based on how long the person has or has not been texted back and who texted it back last. So we'd end up sending things to a black hole because the Litify services system admin would send out an automated text message, and it would think that that was the person that last texted it, which we were like, that's not quite right. But anyways, so we fixed that and made sure that it went to the last person that texted it, no matter how long it had been, because usually the last person who had texted it was going to be the person that actually has the most knowledge on the case, because we text every single one of our clients within 7 days every day. Like, that's just what it is. We have a whole dashboard on it. But anyways, and then it has the capability to reroute the notification based upon the user's active status and gets updated by the Salesforce A mobile app. If you're an admin, I'd recommend downloading that and adding anything that you do with automations that are meant to go to your team members or notifications that they need. Add a few different fields to the user object, and you'll see a world of a difference. So we have it where, like, if they go out of the office or if they're on vacation, we can set it to out of office, and it'll route it to whoever their designated backup is, which is one of my favorite things about it. And then it also has a 2-hour missed text notification that goes to the matter owner, letting them know that there's a response compliance, so no text messages get missed. Again, how you offer a better service to your clients is huge with us. So how to replicate all of this at your firm? You know, I started, like we said, from ground zero. I knew what Chris gave me for like an admin training, which was cool. But at the same time, you know, just sitting there with a notebook and a pen, it was just, I was ready to learn. But at the same time, I think we only got a few hours to actually spend together, which clearly wasn't enough. You know?
And it's also a lot to take in.
Yeah.
As
yep.
you go through it.
And especially when you don't know the differences between objects and fields and all those other things. But eventually you start figuring those things out. The questions that I'm kind of posing to you guys are like, what are some automation ideas that you have? You know, start thinking about those kind of things. What's stopping you from doing all of this right now? You know, do you have technical know-how? Do you need to bring in somebody that's giving you a vision for your next flow, your next process builder, your next workflow, your next, you know, whatever? You know, that's just, there's a lot that's going on inside of your Salesforce and your Litify, and the biggest thing that you need to focus on is making sure that you're spending time trying to fix it and make it better. You know, and what lessons did you learn that you can kind of apply to your firm? What are some things that we've kind of talked about? Like, I'm glad to talk to you guys about my failures. I have broke our Litify 5 times, and Angel, thank you for being so kind and giving me the ability to break Litify 5 times, but also giving me the ability to fix Litify 5 times. So, you know, we're good. We're good. You know, but it's that trial and error. You know, we try to find ways to fix it. There is another gentleman that used to work with us who also had sysadmin access, and he and I used to keep a tally of who broke Litify more often, me or him. It was, spoiler alert, me. I got a little bit too overeager sometimes. But, you know, and then what type of automation developer are you? Are you the time saver, the service provider, or the data collector? If you can be a piece of all 3 of those, great. But if your mind's leaning towards one way, dive into that. Start playing with it, have fun with it. Like, I look forward every single time that I click the gear icon and I get to shut my door and I get to turn on music and start thinking of really cool things to build. Like, that's my favorite time during the day. And I usually do it around 2 o'clock when Angel goes to lunch. So, but yeah. And I think that's it. So if anybody has any questions.
And I'll just say one quick thing just to round this up. So if you are not continuously improving your Litify, I think you're missing out on a huge part of this product. A main reason why Litify is so successful is because it's built on the Salesforce platform. You should be continuously improving this. If not every day, every week, something new should be getting into your system, right?
Yeah. And so if anybody has any questions, yeah, go for it.
I'm right at the point where you were.
Yeah,
you know,
that's awesome. Welcome.
So where did you go to learn all this? Like, I I want to know what the difference is between the flows and the
So,
process builders and
the
then
fun-
how to implement it.
The fun thing is you don't even need to write this down.
Okay.
It's spelled Google. Honestly, I'm the biggest fan of Google. Like I'm our marketing manager, so like I understand the concepts of searching for things, and when you're trying to find the right things, Google rewards you when you search it for the right things rather than saying, okay, Google, give me this person's phone number. And it's like, you know, you can do that, but at the same time, you could probably make it more precise by searching the actual person. And then that way you get all of that information that you want to see. And that's like my biggest advice. It's not like me saying you don't know how to Google. I promise you know how to Google. The biggest thing is it's going to be very much so about making your search concise in a short amount of a frame and phrasing it for what other people are probably titling an article as. There are millions of articles on Salesforce and Trailhead. I've never used Trailhead. My Trailhead score is literally 0. But it's because I learned it all by like, I just started building stuff. And if I got into something, I was like, okay, how do I fix this? You know, like, how do I get past this? That kind of thing. So, and there's the amount of times where, you know, I always kind of give Shmuel crap about him taking 4 weeks to respond to me. But every single ounce of it has been, he kind of told me a story yesterday about how every single developer at Apple has a rubber duck. And before you can go to support or to like ask a friend or ask anybody else, you have to explain your process or whatever it is to a rubber duck and tell them what you're trying to do. And 9 times out of 10, you figure it out by explaining it to the rubber duck. And so his model is, I'm not going to message you back within 4 weeks because by that time you've gotten impatient and already figured it out. And so, and that's kind of the way it is. You know, I just use Google like nonstop. You know, I ask the community. I'll post things in Slack and say, hey, I'm really having an issue with this. Can somebody please help me out? And they'll give me some of the best advice. And they'll say, oh, this is what you're doing wrong. You know, if you're trying to build out formulas, so like, have you dove into formulas at all yet?
A little bit.
Okay, so have you figured out how to cross out, like, so, like, are you just starting out doing, like, building fields and things like that as well?
Yeah, so I got pretty comfortable with that.
Cool.
Fields and the objects and things, and now I'm trying to do more automation background stuff.
Gotcha. Yes.
And, I tried the Trailhead and try to walk through some of those step-throughs and gain points, and
Yeah.
I'm learning stuff I already knew, and I...
Yeah, it starts to all kind of flow in together. Get with me after and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But yeah. Any other questions?
I have 2 quick questions.
Yeah.
What's the trigger on the companion matter?
On the companion matter, it's actually a screen flow. Yep. So they literally have it in a button that's inside of the intake. They click it and it literally asks them, is this a minor or is this another person that is of age? If it asks them of age, it then collects more of the information. If it's a minor, they don't need to collect the phone number because it's their parent. You know, like you go through and grab that all of that information. So it's not necessarily showing you the things you don't need to know. It's dynamic to the point where it's like, we're going to let you customize the things we know you need to customize for this, but we're also going to push it forward as fast as possible. And then it's going to copy all of the rest of the data that needs to move over about the incident that happened, you know, so.
And then, Chris, I have a question for you.
Sure.
You talked about validation. I feel like every time I put the duplicates, every time I put this in, it's messing up pre-existing matters.
Pre-existing matters.
Yeah, like if I put in a validation rule where 2 fields have to be filled out, let's say one's missing. On all my previous matters that were
Oh, when you try to edit it, it's going to give you an error. Yeah, yeah. So
you just do like a data upload.
you can also,
Data loader,
in
for
duplicate
sure.
rules also, you can, there's an option to allow creation or editing, but to give basically an alert. So that might be the way you want to go. If you don't want to get that error on every single one, right?
You guys threw in a validation rule that every single role had to be related to the matter when I was on
That
vacation.
particular matter.
Yeah, when I was on vacation. Thanks. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
It took a whole day. No. Any other questions?
This may be a silly question, but the
There's-
flows, what is it that you actually have them do? Does it interface like with a matter to have it send an email to
Yeah. So that's actually a really, really fun question. By the way, there is no such thing as a silly question. That's a great question because sometimes I do go a little bit too fast for somebody that would have started out where I was when Chris was telling me these things. Had he told me, yeah, Flow Builder, do it, you know, I would have looked at him and been like, no. That looks scary.
I will
But
say Flow is probably the most daunting out of everything that we talked about. Process Builder is, I would say start out with Process
Yes.
Builder, learn Process Builder, and then you hop into Flow. Because there's some logic that carries over from Process Builder to Flow.
Absolutely. If you can understand the concepts and relationships between the different objects and how you can get those things to populate by starting, like literally go and create a lookup field on your matter just for fun to create a lookup to whatever else you want to, and then I mean you can delete it later. I would totally delete it later. But you know, create a lookup field so then that way you can kind of see how you can reference those different records, those kinds of things. You know, for instance, so Flow is the reason why I like it better. Is imagine a canvas that is completely blank. It doesn't even know what record you're trying to pull it from, but you have to create something where that is stored, which is really cool because it allows endless possibilities. It's literally very much so. The way that I put flows is you step into, if you guys like Disney, if anybody likes Disney, if you step into like Disney Magic Kingdom, and there is absolutely nothing but bare concrete, you are the person that gets to build all of these different things. That is what flows is. So like it allows you, go back to the other flow. Go back to the big one, other one. Yes, okay, so this, okay? So this first piece is called the decision component. So you create these components to lie on your flow. You have assignments, you have decisions, you have pauses, you have loops. All of those things are more along the lines of logic, whereas these down here are where you collect your data. You create your data.
Where does that go in Litiquest? You make custom screens for this, or?
You can, yeah, for sure. If it's a screen flow, you can actually create a screen where somebody populates a screen, and then you can take whatever they put into that screen and use a create record, and you can push it to a new record of whatever you want. So,
or you can have it trigger off of a field update.
Yep.
So let's say I update a pick list to a certain value, and then once that happens, I want something to happen in the background. That's another thing that you could do.
So like say for instance, if there's a matter, if there's like a matter where a field gets updated and like for instance a validation rule, where it tells us like, and this is just another step further. So if there's a validation rule that is, you know, checking to see for a federation ID, if somebody populates that federation ID with the exact same thing, I want it to throw them an error, but I want it to send me an email telling me the exact matters that it's copying data from. That I would use this for.
And you can have it send, say, like document generation to send, so like if something doesn't happen by a certain date, it'll create a set of letters.
Yeah, I haven't thought about if you could even do that yet.
How you have to look at it is, you know, Litiquest is built on the Salesforce platform. Dockery is a whole separate product.
Yeah.
So you could obviously access, you know, different fields on the file info object, which is where, you know, that holds the fields that describe your document. But when it comes to actual things that Dockery does, that gets a little more tricky because now you're dealing with a separate product. Like Dockery is just sitting in Salesforce, but it's a whole separate thing.
So for example, like if you write for medical records and you don't get the records within the designated
Oh,
time,
yeah.
to have the system automatically send out the letter, hey, you didn't send me the records in 30 days.
Yeah.
You better send me the records.
So we do something
if
with
it's an email, you can
so we
automatically
do
send that, for
something
sure.
with our LOP providers, where if they populate the date that they requested the record, if it hasn't come back and if the field of date received hasn't been populated back on the request, it literally will send another email right back out and say, hey, I want my records.
That's pretty helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's fun. And you can reference those things within here.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff you guys should be screaming this at the top of your lungs from my point of view.
Trust me, I do. Yeah.
No, that's like a. I mean, I do PI. I'm sure everybody else does.
Yeah.
The follow-ups on all this stuff, that's like huge. It's like wasted time.
Yep.
If the computer could do that.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, sending text messages to a
Based
client.
on a certain amount of time too, you can, you know, it could be triggered 7 days after, right?
Yeah,
You can
like,
do these types of things.
for
Like
instance,
it's delayed.
We use flows to send out happy birthday text messages. Like, you know, it's like little things like that to automate those kind of things that just like push everything out what you need to do and have it all run through a flow and make sure that you have the logic set up so you're not sending a happy birthday text to a widow that just lost her husband. Like, you need to have those things set in place. You know, so that's also another thing that I would be very important with. Make sure you have a field that says this is a death case, so you do not send automated text messages and emails saying, hey, we're just thinking about you, how's your treatment going? Like, they're not going to treatment. You know, that's not a good thing. But yeah, I've made that mistake once. Sorry, Angel. But yeah, any other questions?
So I know you said you have like your clone for your intakes.
Mhm.
Does that also transfer over to the matter?
No, I have not gone to that piece because 9 times out of 10, when it's actually gone over to the matter, it's the reason why I haven't done it with the matter is because we have so many different fields on our matters. So if we're trying to say, okay, what do you want to clone over to the matter? You have a whole list of the fields, and by that time they should have just copied it and then gone over to the companion tab and pasted it over. It's a pain in the butt, I know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not necessarily, like, it goes back to the 90% rule. It's going to be faster for them just to copy paste it than it is to go through that whole list view where it's like, you know, we're just trying to make sure that we actually automated those things, and that is one of those. Yeah, but that's like that's actually a perfect question because that's us bringing it back to make sure that the development time is worth it. Because if you imagine trying to build out an entire screen saying, okay, what fields do you want to copy over? And they go in and select all of them in multi-selects form or whatever, you know, and then it just goes and pushes all that stuff over. Well, they could have just copied it all at that point. Because they have to go through all 200 fields or whatever it is, you know, and then they copy it over to like each individual case. If there's like more than one companion, yes, that would make total sense.
I mean, like we have a lot of, I mean, we do PIs,
Yep.
so there are times where we get like bus cases. Where
Yeah. Oh, you get the whole bus?
Where we get like.
We need to talk.
Okay.
I need to find out how to get the whole bus.
I mean, sometimes you'll get companion cases
Yeah.
of like 18, 20 people being in the accident.
Giving him ideas. Now I'm going to get in trouble because we haven't done that yet.
So whenever you're going and you're in all of these cases, like going and adding in, we have, you know, specific rules at our firm where you have to have 4 insurance entries on every case. You have to have your liability, UM, MedPay, and health insurance.
Yeah.
You have to have those on every single case.
So the beauty is that actually starts in the intake, and that's why we did it. So
Of course, that's not.
yeah, so for instance, like our intake has a whole separate flow. It's called the intake consolidation process, is what I built it out to be. Or the, what is it, ICP is what I call it. I have really bad acronyms.
I love it. It makes me think intake clown posse.
Yeah.
You're fine.
But anyways, so what it does is it literally takes it, and it's kind of the same as what the companions is. So they create the first one, right?
Yeah.
When the first one gets created, it'll take all of the records and push them all to all the different places, and then it sits and it's perfect and ready to go.
Okay.
Then what they do is they then go click the clone to companion button, and they will populate all of that information over to each different companion. So like a bus of 18 will take them 6 minutes, and they'll populate all of it over. And then from there, when they create the matter, we have flows in the background that basically grab all of that information from the intake and populate it over to the matter when they hit the convert button. So it's creating all of those records at the beginning and then shoveling it over, so they don't need to have a whole ton of, you know, like extra work to clone things over in the matter, because most of that is done in the intake. So make sense?
It does. I like the way your intake works.
Yeah. I kind of rebuilt our intake processes and stuff like that from the ground up, and when I started figuring things out. But yeah, and I still have a lot of work to do.
Okay. Feel free to come to Baton Rouge anytime you'd like. I feel like you could teach me a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Does anybody else have any questions? Hey.
What do you think your most beneficial automation is that other firms could also benefit?
You guys have Google reviews? Would it be cool if you guys actually replied to your Google reviews in Litify? We did that. I built that on Tuesday. Yeah. That's also an integration. So like it helps us to be able to reply quickly. My next goal is to create templates inside of that and then populate the templates into it. So it replies to 5-star reviews with a set of 10 different templates, so they're not all duplicative. So they just keep going out. But yeah, that's like the newest one that we built that I'm really excited about.
What's your marketing integration?
What about that?
What's your marketing integration?
I like using, so like, are you talking for like our attribution or?
Yeah. No, and your Google reviews. Like,
Yeah.
how are you pulling all that in?
So our attribution, we use Invoca. That's like, we hated Invoca until we figured out Invoca, so that's kind of the way that everything works. Yeah, that, and then I use Zapier on the integration with Google. So you just have to create custom objects, and then you have to create some automation surrounding it. So then that way it marks off stuff and then sends out the reply, and then you gotta link all of the things together. So then that way it makes sense, you know, and it's a way for you to interact with all of your customers that are being, you know, generous and giving you a review. You want to show them your gratitude for it.
Is it connecting your Google reviews to your matters?
Yes.
How are you figuring out who's leaving the review?
So it's kind of complex.
Yeah.
So there's a way where you can actually get it to where it can do something very similar to like a duplicative check. So I have it run through a separative logic. So I set the logic up for what I think it is. So if their name is very similar to what it is on Google versus what's in their within their matter, what it'll do is it'll take their name, and it's not perfect, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but it does set up with at least like I think 50% of the time.
Are you able to catch the email
Yes.
in Google? Okay, so that's another way to do
But
it.
the
right?
problem is they sometimes have different emails, is what she's getting at. Like,
Yeah.
So Google reviews, they can literally populate any reviews. So like the problem is the data integrity outside of our Litify is so much different than the data integrity inside. But at the same time, when it comes in, it'll try and match up as much as it can. If it doesn't, that's what happens. We have a process for it. It sends me the link and says, okay, who is this? You know, and if it's like a friend or family or whatever giving us one, then we don't mark it to a matter or an intake. I just get notified of it. And so like we'll attribute it to whoever the person was that got the review. And then that way they'll let us know, oh yeah, that's this person on this matter, and then I'll link it to the matter manually. But for the most part, we try to make it as automated as possible, but Google kind of makes that difficult. So, any other
All right.
question?
I know. Like, we'll take one more. I know we're way over time, but yeah, let's get this last one in.
For the client side, what automation have you built out to keep them either in touch with what's going on with their case, or you mentioned that hey, welcome, you signed up for a welcome. What are some of the automations for the client success?
Yeah, so we took a step ahead and we actually modified our matter plan to be a little bit more robust and to be a very pinpoint piece of where their case is at. Every time that they get checked over to a new spot, it sends them a message, and like it'll sometimes also look up to determine if they were recently called, and it'll include a message that says, hey, I know we just recently talked. We just sent out your demand letter, which means that we are giving the insurance company 60 days to negotiate with us. If they don't negotiate it with us in good faith, like we let them know. We give them steps like through text message, email, things like that. We don't have the customer client, what did they just unveil? We don't have that yet, but like where they can actually see their case and stuff like that. But we do as much communication automatically as possible just based on where their case is. And we also have client indicators. So like if we say nobody has touched this case in 14 days, it populates on a list view. And then they have to go in and they have to populate that. It populates on their dashboard. So they cannot have clients that have not been talked to in 14 days. That kind of stuff. So a lot of fun stuff.
And if you're interested in like a third-party integration, I believe case status is here. So that's an option.
Does integration, then the client can actually log in and see the status of their case and anytime they can message you. It sounds like it would be a really good feature from a client perspective.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any other questions, we'll catch you guys out there. As much as I wanted
Won't
to
keep
say,
you from lunch.
catch me outside, how about that? But yeah.
Wait.